You've been sentenced to death for a crime you didn't commit. Your best friend arrives at dawn with a bribed guard, a bag of money, and a route out of the country. Every practical reason says, run. But you refuse. Not because you can't, because you believe you shouldn't. This is exactly what happened to Socrates in 399 BC, and his reason why has shaped political philosophy for 2400 years. To understand why, we need to enter the prison cell. Socrates sits in an Athenian jail awaiting execution. The sentence has been delayed. A sacred ship on a religious voyage to Delos must return before Athens can carry out any death penalty. It's the final morning. Crito, one of Socrates' oldest friends, arrives before dawn. He's bribed the guard. He finds Socrates sleeping peacefully, not pacing, not plotting, not afraid. A condemned man with a clear conscience. Socrates wakes and describes a dream. A woman dressed in white appeared to him and said, "On the third day, you will reach Pleasant Phthia." That line comes from Homer's Iliad. Achilles, furious at Agamemnon, threatens to abandon the Greek army at Troy and sail home to Phthia in 3 days. Phthia means escape, a warrior walking away from duty. Socrates inverts the image entirely. His journey to Phthia won't be a ship sailing away from obligation. It will be death accepted willingly inside the prison walls. Achilles reached Phthia by fleeing. Socrates reaches Phthia by staying. The philosopher becomes the new Achilles, but his homecoming is completed through duty, not through abandoning it. With this dream still in the air, Crito makes his case. Crito's arguments are emotionally powerful and practically sound. First, the escape plan is ready. The guards are bribed. Friends in Thessaly will provide safe refuge. Second, if Socrates dies, his friends will be shamed. People will say they were too cheap or too cowardly to save him. Third, and the most cutting, Socrates has young sons. By refusing to escape, he abandons them to grow up fatherless in a city that killed their father. Crito is generous, loyal, and utterly reasonable by ordinary standards. He loves Socrates and cannot understand why a man with every means to live would choose to die. Socrates doesn't argue point by point against Crito's pragmatism. He shifts the entire frame. The question, Socrates insists, is not, can I escape? It's, ought I to escape? And the question can only be answered through dialectic, structured reasoning toward truth through logical exchange, not through emotional appeal or majority opinion. What do the neighbors think? Irrelevant. The only opinion that matters is the one that emerges from careful moral reasoning. Then Socrates states his foundational premise. We must never willingly do wrong, even in retaliation for wrong done to us. Even if Athens wronged him, and it did, he cannot wrong Athens in return. But Socrates' refusal goes deeper than disagreeing with Crito. He makes an argument that will echo through 2,000 years of political thought. Socrates asks Crito to imagine the laws of Athens themselves appearing before them, personified speaking. And the laws make this case. Socrates, we gave you everything. We governed the marriage that produced you. We provided the education that shaped your mind. We established the institutions under which you raised your family and practiced your philosophy. For 70 years, you lived within our walls. You left only for military service. You were always free to emigrate. Every Athenian was. You could have moved to Sparta, to Crete, to any city whose laws you preferred. You never did. That choice to stay year after year, decade after decade, constitutes an implicit social contract, an unspoken agreement formed through voluntary participation in a political community. The laws gave, Socrates accepted, and acceptance freely continued over a lifetime creates obligation. Even when a specific verdict is unjust, the legal order itself retains its legitimate claim. Like, to flee now would not just save one man, and it would destroy the authority of law for everyone. Here's the tension Plato wants us to feel. In the Apology, the dialogue where Socrates defends himself at trial, he declared, "I will never stop philosophizing even if you order me to." That is radical defiance. Individual conscience placed above all legal authority. Taken alone, this principle is dangerous. It could justify anyone disobeying any law they personally deem unjust. The Crito provides the counterweight. Civic obligation, rooted in implicit consent, constrains individual conscience. Taken alone, this principle is equally dangerous. It demands blind obedience with no room for moral dissent. Plato's achievement is presenting both arguments through the same man in dialogues meant to be read together. The Apology without the Crito produces lawless individualism. The Crito without the Apology produces uncritical submission. Together, they define Socrates' actual position, conscience operating within the framework of civic obligation. Neither alone is sufficient. This balance, conscience against obligation, is not an ancient curiosity. It's the central tension of every act of civil disobedience, every constitutional crisis, every whistleblower's decision. Socrates' argument about implicit consent anticipates social contract theory. By 2 millennia, Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau all grappled with the same question: what do we owe the state and why? The Crito's answer, we owe it because we chose it, even if we never signed anything. Return to the dream. Achilles threatened to go home to Phthia to abandon his duty. Socrates went home to death precisely by honoring his. The philosopher's journey was completed not by escape, but by remaining.